In this video, we'll learn how to add in-app subscriptions to your React Native application with Expo using Glassfy. Hey everyone, what's up? This is Simon from galaxies.dev, back with a React Native tutorial on how to easily manage your in-app subscriptions with a service called Glassfy. So Glassfy is the sponsor of this video, and I've used Glassfy before for an Ionic capacitor application, and the response was amazing. Everyone who tried out Glassfy actually loved it, so I'm pretty sure if you're using React Native and Expo, you're gonna love it as well, because Glassfy makes it really easy to manage your in-app purchases and your subscriptions and creating paywalls in your application and all sorts of features around monetizing your app, because it can actually be quite hard to manage this on iOS and the Android side and then making that work in a cross-platform way. But with Glassfy, you basically unify all information in Glassfy and then you just interact with the Glassfy SDK from your application. That's what we're gonna do today. So I'm gonna walk you through the steps of what you need to do in general to set up Glassfy, to set up the SKUs, permissions and offerings, and then we're gonna go through the React Native side of setting up the project and displaying a cool little list where we can purchase the items. If you want to follow along, I recommend you check out the link below the video to both the GitHub code and also the written version of this article, so you can get all the code for the different steps that we go through, because we need quite some initial code as we need to wrap our React app in a provider and context and all that sort of things. Of course, make sure you also subscribe to this channel and leave a like, and check out glassify.io where you can get started for free to set up these cool in-app subscriptions. Alright, so let's get started with our application and see how Glassfy actually works. So build, manage and grow in-app purchases, and we can already see we can do this for a bunch of different languages and frameworks, including Objective-C, Kotlin, Java, Flutter, React Native and Ionic, as we've done before. But today we're going to use React Native. You can get started with Glassfy actually for free up until 10K monthly revenue. So when you reach 10K monthly revenue with your app, congratulations, that's actually a big milestone. In that case, I'm pretty sure you can also afford Glassfy. So again, you can get started for free. Now, how does Glassfy actually work? You first of all sign in with your GitHub account or create an account, and then you can create an application here. So I created a few applications already, so you can have different applications. I'm gonna select Simon's app. I think that's the one which has some products. Yeah, and let me show you how this works. Now, if you set up in-app purchases or subscriptions in your native iOS and Android project, what you usually do is you go to something like App Store Connect, and under in-app purchases, you set up and configure your in-app purchases, and same for subscriptions. So what I do have in here is, for example, this one, Cool Gems, a consumable. So a consumable being you can buy this like 100 times and you always just get 100 gems. Or you have a non-consumable, which is like a cool skin or a specific map or whatever thing that you just unlock once. On top of that, I also have this subscription setup. Again, pro features, nothing fancy. But what you probably notice is that for all of these, I use a very specific ID that is recommended by Glassfy, and it follows the same platform. So this could be iOS or Android. Then the app name, then the feature, duration, and price. Now let's go back to the in-app purchases. I have the same platform, gems, 100, consumable, and the price. And now, the important thing is I used mostly, if not completely, actually, yeah, mostly the same setup for Android. So if I put this here to the side, we're gonna see for iOS I set up these consumables like this. And for Android, it will look like this. Thanks for making, can I just please go away? Okay, so this one would be Android Gems 100 consumable 199. Now, why did I do this? This is recommended by Glassfy, as Glassfy can now basically bundle all the things that we have on Play Store and App Store Connect. So let's go back here to our application within Glassfy and check this out. So I've created SKU, which is the first thing you're gonna have to create for your application. And I called this Gems 100 consumable. Notice, now I left out the platform, but here we have two product IDs attached, and that's the cool thing. So let me grab this. If I create an SKU, I can name this My Cool SKU, and I can add an App Store product for Apple and then I would use something like iOS something, and then I would also add the subscription or in-app purchase for Android, and I would just prefix this with the Android ID. And Glassify will later retrieve that information from Google and from Apple, and we only need to interact with this one SKU. And that is what I found so really super helpful with Glassify. And as you can see from my application, I just set up everything else. So I used this tiger skin and the shark skin, and I bundled all of them under their own SKU. And in the end, we should hopefully see that information in our app. But we're not directly seeing these SKUs. There are two more blocks. There's a permission block and an offering block. Now, a permission block simply means what a user actually gets by purchasing this. Now, with our gems here, I actually included an extra variable down here. So you can have an extra variable, I call this gems, and that means when we purchase that product, we get this information. Now, for things like a tiger skin, you later want to know, did my user unlock this? So therefore, we have permissions, and Glassify stores these permissions. So if somebody purchased the tiger skin, I can then say cool permission, and the user would have that permission after purchasing it. So in my case, I said he or she will have the tiger skin and the shark skin, so with a little description after purchasing these SKUs. And now we're just using the internal SKUs of Glassify. And the third block is the offering block. Now the offering is what we get in our app. And under offering, you can actually bundle SKUs. So for example, for the non-consumable block, I applied our tiger skin and the shark skin. So in our application, we will later, this is like the entry point to show something. We're gonna catch and retrieve the offerings from Glassify. Then we can create these three categories, and under those categories we can show the SKUs, and these SKUs can then be purchased. So that's the basic flow. Offering, then we have the groups, then we have the SKUs, and then we can purchase them. And so the whole setup here is pretty easy and abstracts away everything that we see on the Google Play console or in App Store Connect, and that's really, really helpful. Additionally, to configure your Glassify app, you can set this up under settings, of course, with your app ID for both App Store and Play Store. Additionally, there's an Apple S2 notification URL that you can add under app information here, because then Glassify is actually able to catch the webhook events that Apple is sending after specific events regarding a subscription happen. And also you can set this up for the Play Store. You just need to create this the Google JSON key, the services key. Glassify has great documentation on this. We won't go through this because then the video will likely be like an hour, but you can find this under the documentation. But the most important part is actually here. This is our API key, and within our React Native application, we're going to use that API key to establish our connection to Glassify. So let's do this. I've already created a new React Native application. So create Expo app, I call this React Glassify, and I used the TypeScript template because really, please use TypeScript. I know I'm coming from the Angular world, so we used to TypeScript since like, I don't know, 5-6 years now. React is slowly adapting to this as well, and please just get used TypeScript, please go for it. After that, we can add the React Native Glassify module with Expo. So is it in the documentation somewhere? Where is actually the documentation? Not here, probably here. React Native SDK. So there we go, React Native Glassify module. That's what we need to add, and that's what we need to import. Now, after doing this, the managed workflow from Expo won't work, so we need to go for a pre-build, but I'm going to show you that in a second. For now, also make sure that you add the React navigation package. I just installed this so we can have like a little header bar, and that makes life a bit easier. Again, for all the code that follows, you can find the GitHub and the article with all the code linked below this video, so you can grab it. And I'm going to bring in the code because it's actually quite a lot that we need for this little setup, and I just want to explain the different snippets to you. However, I said we need a pre-build, so what we can run now is Expo pre-build. What is Expo pre-build doing? Well, What would you like to name? Yeah, I'm just gonna go with com.dev decktick.glassify. Yeah, and please use it for iOS as well. Expo pre-build is basically what Expo eject was doing in the past in a lot better way. So Expo pre-build is adding native iOS and Android folders to our React Native application. We're then moving away from the Expo manage workflow to the Expo bear workflow, but it's actually not really a problem because with one command we can still run our app on a device. We got live reload and we got pretty much everything that we need. So I'm gonna start my Reflector app as well and try if I'm lucky today and get a connection from my iPhone to my Mac. Usually not happening whenever I need it. So this step of Expo pre-build, ooh, that is new. It immediately works, nice. Okay, so the step of Expo pre-build can take some time initially because it's really setting up everything, doing the Cocoa Pods installation, everything that is required. But we should we already, let's do it. Let's already open the iOS folder in Xcode. Actually, you can do this right from Visual Studio Code. And I don't know if it's happy if I apply changes already, but I'm gonna show you anyway. So what we need to do is I'm gonna select my team as well. And we need to add one capability. So we, of course, need in-app purchase capability. Just click on it. Usually Apple or Xcode will update your profile and the provisioning profile of your application, so you don't have to go anywhere else. You also need to add something for Android. So for Android, you need to configure the source main Android manifest. And you're gonna have to find the permissions block. Yeah, there we go. And we're gonna add one more permission for Android vending billing. That's required for in-app purchases as well. Okay, I think at this point we're pretty much done. And well, we'll just let the Cocoa Pods installation run in the background. Should be finished anytime soon, although it's taking quite some time today. There we go, we're done. We gotta run this, and as I said, I want to run this on my device. So I'm gonna run this expo run iOS -- device. We'll try to find my device, and then it should print, yes, Simon's iPhone is connected. So I'm going for that one because, in fact, we could have probably used the simulator for now. Yeah, well, we're going with the iPhone for now. Because if you want to try in-app purchases, you're gonna have to use a real phone. Otherwise, the sandbox and stuff, it's just not working on a simulator in a great way. So I recommend you connect your phone in that case. Now, to connect to Glassfy, to load our offerings, do the purchases and all of that stuff, we're gonna need to make sure that our application has the connection established. Now, we could do this with a custom hook or something, but I actually decided that it might be a good idea to wrap our application in sort of a Glassfy provider and then use that as a context for our React application, just like you would use an authentication context around your app. So let's create a new file. Let's actually start with a new folder. I'm gonna create a new app folder, unlocking my app. Yes, allowing, trying to, oh great. So probably I will just go for run iOS on the simulator for now. I don't care. We can do the testing later with, I think we only the purchase is a problem. Anything else should work with our simulator as well. So I'm gonna do this. Anyway, we got our app folder. Let's create 3 folders. We need a folder for providers. Then we're gonna need a folder for pages of our application. And then we're gonna need a new folder for components. So we're gonna put in a nice structure for our application. Once we're done, we can see hopefully our app on a device as well. So maybe we start by adding a new home page, home.tsx in here. And we can get started with a React Native functional export component, just a home component. And then under our app.tsx, we can change our setup to use the stack navigation. So we're gonna get back to the Glassfy provider in a second. What we need right now is to create a stack navigator using React Native. Oh, come on, you could have done that auto import. Come on, there we go. Did I install this or didn't I? I feel like I did install it. But this is not looking like I did it. So let's probably run this as well. Just to be sure. So React Native, the navigation and the native stack. And once this is done, we should be good to go. So let's close this. And yes, now you're happy, right? Good. So this is our stack. And to create our view, we're just gonna wrap our whole application in this navigation container, the usual setup if you want to use the React navigation package. So we have the stack navigator, and then we have one screen, which is our home component. Let's see, where's my app? Ooh, is it this one or is it a different one? I honestly don't know. Yeah, please open my app. Doesn't really look like it's that app. Maybe we should just reload. Screen stack, yeah, after setting up that package, I'm pretty sure that I should do a nice reload and that everyone would be more happy if I just refresh the whole serve command. Okay, but anyway, we should have our first view in place, and let's get back to the provider that I mentioned. So I'm gonna create a new file. I'm call this Glassfy provider. You can actually copy that Glassfy provider basically one-to-one from GitHub because it should contain everything that you need. So let me bring in the initial code for our provider. Didn't I add that module? I could swear I had, like, did I just create this file for you, but actually run none of the commands? I'm such a joke. All right, looks like I really made Visual Studio Code and Metro and everyone else mad. But here is our app. This is the basic setup. And now back to the provider. So I brought in some code. We do have an interface for our provider, which offers a purchase function, a restore permissions, because you always need a restore function, a user object, which has just a little user state. So we're going to locally try and track the purchases and the permissions of a user. And then we have also all the offerings. Then we create our context with those props. And what we now need is our Glassify key. So that's really like the only thing we need to bring in. So I'm just gonna copy this one. And by the way, as far as I know, there's even a demo app. So you could probably, if you're getting started, just grab that API key from the demo app without actually setting up your own purchases. So that could be pretty cool, I think, as well. Now, for our provider, the provider is basically managing our user state, like what the user purchased. We're not really keeping track of gems, so we would have to use some kind of server to track that. But we actually get information if the user is pro subscribed or if he or she had some non-consumables. Additionally, we want to grab the offerings when Glassify is ready, and we do it in here to prevent some race conditions. So I had this, like, if the homepage is loading the offerings and Glassify is not initialized, that's kind of hard to do. So that's why I made this provider. And in the beginning, we're gonna initialize our connection to Glassify. We're gonna say that we are now ready. Should we do this? Yeah, we probably should. And then we load our offerings and we also load our permissions. Then we create the value object, which we can assign to our object that we in the end return. And if we're not yet ready, we return an empty fragment to prevent that we are not yet initialized. And then we have an easy export to use our Glassify context. Now, as you can see, there are a few functions missing, like load offerings and load permissions. So let me bring in the first three. Those are load offerings, load permissions, and restore permissions because they are really easy. You can see we just need to use the Glassify SDK to get all the offerings, and then we get the offerings of our project. So we should get back this information. And in fact, just gonna put in a lock here, probably for permissions as well. And then after loading the permissions, I'm calling handle existing permissions. We just do this for like a little demo case. So I'm going to show you what you could do. If you want to handle your permissions, you could go through all the permissions you get back from Glassify, and notice how Glassify, the SDK, is actually also using pretty nice types everywhere. So you get easily code completion check if something is valid and if the permission ID is equal to our shark skin, then we gotta give the user the shark skin, and if he's pro, we're giving him the pro flag. So just local handling of the permissions that we get from Glassfy. Now, this is not everything. The most important part is the purchase function, but actually that is so easy with Glassfy as well. Like, we get from our list, from our view, remember, we have the SKUs, we have the permissions, and we have the offerings. And from the offerings, we will later get the SKUs. And to purchase something, we just need to pass a Glassfy SKU to this function. And that's what we do straight through our application. We push it here. And if the receipt is validated, which Glassfy actually tells us, we can then handle what we want to do. So we're pretty much doing the same like we did when we checked the initial permissions. So in that case, I'm just trying to see if there's the gems in the ID, if there's the tiger skin in the ID, and then just update our user state with that. So that is not really related to Glassfy, there's just some internal handling of that state. Now, with all of this in place, we can wrap this around our app here. So let's put the Glassfy provider around our application. Oops, there we go. And then we should see a lock, exactly like this. Why do we see a lock? Because in our provider, I put a lock after the offerings and the permissions. So here it's loading the offerings. Under all, we have an array object offering ID consumables followed by an array of SKUs. Non-consumables followed by an array of SKUs, actually the two, and then we have our subscriptions. So that means we do get at this point all the relevant information from Glassfy. We see all the information, and in our case, we now want to present this in an easy way to the user so we can go through the whole process of clicking it and seeing the checkout. In your application, you could just create this and use this in your state and then access the information once a user actually wants to go pro or wants to unlock something specific. Because usually, unless you have like a little store, in that case, you probably want to show all of this. But usually you just want to show this information at one specific point in time. So now let's get back to our home screen and let's change this home screen. So I'm gonna bring in a code to change this a bit. What I wanna do is I wanna show this like this, okay. From our use Glassfy, which we can now easily access from this from this child component, we can get restore permissions, which is always required by the app stores, the user object, and offerings. Now, since we're using React navigation, we can set the header right, this restore, to our restore function. So I just did this in a super easy way. But again, we can't really do this in the simulator anyway. But this will lock all the permissions and you will get that back from Glassfy, which is pretty nice. Now, in our view, I have a scroll view and I just map all the offerings. So to make this happy, we could say group.offering ID, and then that would go. And we see the first three sections: consumables, non-consumables, and subscriptions. And we can now have another mapping in here. So we could pretty much say group dot. So why do I not get code completion now? Am I not in that? Oh yeah, let's wrap something around it. And then we have the SKUs. And then let's do another text key, whatever, SKU dot SKU ID. And then let's log out something like SKU dot, I don't know actually what's the text. Is it product? What is included? Maybe we just log the SKU ID. So then we see consumables and we see gems 100. Then we see the section non-consumables, skin tiger and skin shark, and subscriptions, our little subscription here. So that means essentially we have all the information in place that we need. Now everything that we do next is more like a little optical thing. So I just want to make sure that we have a nice list. So if you want to follow along, you can check this out. I'm going to create an offering group component here. I'm going to call this offering group.tsx. I'm going to bring in some code and some style. So the offering group will get one group, just what we see in here. And with that offering group, we are able to do everything that we need. So in the view, we just have a setup of like a text with the offering ID, which could be consumable, non-consumable, whatever. And then we have the container with everything inside. So this is really just a UI thing. Now let me hit save. And then on our homepage, instead of this freaky setup here, what we're going to use is we're going to actually use our offering group, passing in the group, and use the offering ID as a key. And as a result, we have a nice visual representation. So there was really no real magic included. It was just CSS and another component where we actually also format the price. So what you see in here is using our number format. And at this point, we have the function and the ability to purchase something. And to purchase that item, we just need to pass through the Glassify SKU. So again, we got the offering group, that offering group. If we look at the TypeScript structure interface, we got the offering ID and we got an array of Glassify SKUs. And that is what we can pass to the purchase function to eventually purchase something. But before we actually do this, and I switch to my real device so we can make a purchase, I just noticed that besides 100 gems, it shows get 100 cool gems to purchase more power. And I was curious. So I don't think I supplied this sentence anywhere in Glassify. So that means what we see here in terms of the description of that consumable item must come exactly from Apple. Like, I don't know. This is really, let's see, in-app purchases. Let's go to the cool gems. Cool gems. Description, get 100 cool gems to purchase. Like, this is so cool. So that means Glassify was actually pulling in the real description from Apple. That is kind of cool. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it makes sense, but I didn't expect this. So that is really nice. So besides that, again, we got our consumables, we got our non-consumables, and everything is grouped under the offerings that we configured in Glassify. So we see consumables, the one item, non-consumable has two items, and we got subscriptions. And at this point, I could already purchase something, but let's quickly wrap this up because then we can even see what we purchased below. Otherwise, we can only see the log. So let's add a new file here and call this user permissions.tsx. And oh no, my device, stay there, stay with me, stay with me. So the user permissions will just display a little card. Oh, that is strange. I've never seen that one before. We'll just display a little card using the current user state from our context. Really nothing fancy. We'll just show the user gems, which skins were purchased, and if the pro features are enabled or not. And to wrap this up, let's add this to our homepage. Let's just add it after this cool mapping. So, oh, there was the wrong shortcut. That's it. User permissions goes below users. Now we got that card. I'm probably I'm gonna put this now here, so my head is not covering our application. Cool. Now that we got this, let's try and purchase something. I'm gonna go with the gems. So I'm gonna hit purchase. It might take a second. By the way, you need a sandbox testing account for this. So you already see this testing purpose only. You will not be charged. And sandbox, yeah, it says sandbox at the top. Welcome, welcome. I could have seen that. Now, if I know my password, I hope it's this one. Let's see. So you can create these for Apple and for Android. You can also have testers. Done. And let's keep an eye on the gems field here. But we should get a confirmation from the sandbox before this is actually done. So the sandbox is really, really slow sometimes. But your purchase was successful. Okay. And it increases my gems. So how is this working? Now let's go through the what's going on here. In our offering group, we purchase that SKU using our context. if we call the purchase function here, where's the purchase function? There we go. It will call Glassify purchase SKU. Really, we're just passing through that object from top to bottom. And if it is successful, we're gonna handle that transaction. And if that product ID contains the gems 100 consumable, we're gonna set the user state and add from the extra variables our gems. So this line is really interesting because remember how we set this up in the beginning. I can edit my SKU and it shows gems 100 down here. So I could even set this to like 500 and hit save. I don't know if I now need to reload my application. I don't know actually. Do we want to be fancy? Let's try it again. I would assume that so I don't make prediction, but I do think that we should actually get back the latest thing. So that means after setting my extra variables to 500 and doing the purchase, my gems should now increase to 600 after the purchase is successful, if we did everything correct. Let's see. Well, okay, so that means it is indeed cached for now. Now I would have to reload the app. Anyway, let's also try to purchase a tiger skin. Because right now, if I reload my application, the gems will be gone. I don't have any logic to store them. I would have to keep track in the backend of a real user object. So our user object here in the app is just a little dummy thing. But I now purchased the custom tiger skin. And that is interesting because this is a non-consumable. Means I should get back this information from Glassify even if I reload the application, and same for Pro. So I'm going for a Pro subscription now. And by using a Pro subscription, you're gonna be charged every month, but actually in the sandbox case, that's gonna be a lot faster. So if you're using, I think it's a monthly subscription I've set up in App Store, it renews like every 5 minutes and then it expires. So it's like you can test this in half an hour. Anyway, okay, we're successful and our Pro features should change to true. And if I now reload my application, hitting R in here, everything goes crazy. Oh, perfect. But hopefully the app comes back up and we see we do have skins. Actually, it looks like I purchased the other skin before as well, because that is returned in the permissions of Glassfy, and also the Pro features are enabled. Now, where is this information coming from? We can actually take a look, because that's another cool thing I noticed. Glassify makes this whole overview about your customers a lot more transparent. So if I go into my customer dashboard in Glassify, I see now my total revenue, I see some meta information, and then I see all of this like in-app purchase, auto renewed, switched off, and I get all these cool information about a specific user, the permissions purchased, and everything related. And that is a nice way to track your MRR, to get your metrics in place. Oh, I can actually upgrade my account and see my active subscriptions here. So it acts really like a little bit like, yeah, even more than just handling in-app purchases, making everything more transparent. Now, a quick note from myself, what I found really helpful is you can, for iOS at least, go to App Store Connect and Sandbox testers, and if you go to edit and then you select some kind of tester, I don't know, then you can actually clear your purchase history here, because sometimes this is confusing. You want the user to purchase something and test that flow, and then later think, hey, I want to do this from the bare state to having that checked out. So here you can actually clear your purchase history, and you can manage your in-app subscription. So we have a Pro subscription right now. I could manage that from my iTunes account on my device. There's actually a Sandbox account for apps for testing. So you can there cancel that subscription, and that subscription runs out. But again, that subscription by default within Apple Sandbox will time out like 20 or 30 minutes. Or even if you're using a year for your subscription, it will time out like an hour later. So that should be easy for testing. And then I hope you can create some epic apps with Glassify and that your active subscriptions skyrocket and you easily crush the limit of 10K MRR with Glassify. Alright. Great, and that's it for today's React Native tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of the different steps. Again, you can find all code on both GitHub in the repository and also in the article explained for the different sections and how we edit this to make in-app subscriptions and in-app purchases work for our Expo application. So yes, definitely you can even have in-app subscriptions and purchases with Expo, although this has always been challenging in the past. So go check it out, glassify.io, sponsor of this video, and you can get started for free up until 10k MRR, and to be honest, my apps never hit 10k MRR. So go check it out. It makes handling in-app subscriptions and managing your users and even seeing your MRR and active subscriptions a lot easier. If you enjoyed this video, please also leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and check out galaxies.dev, which is my platform for the future, helping curious web developers to explore the edges of the web and mobile dev universe. So I hope you join me, I hope you check out Glassfy, and I will catch you next time. So until then, happy coding, Simon.